Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Hear me?
All right. Hopefully, let's see if we can try to connect him now. Sergio?
Cindy. Hi.
Can you hear me now? Hi.
I
You can hear
can.
me, yes? Oh, good. I'm
No, I
so
can.
happy we could finally connect with one another. I'm so sorry about the technical trouble there. My God, I feel terrible. And my hope is that everybody heard me talking for the last 10 minutes so they missed the announcements. But that's okay because you're the big deal in town, so we've got you on the line, so that's the big thing. So first of all, let me just say thank you so much for calling in. I'm so excited. I have so much that I want to ask you about. It's sickening. I have a list a mile long. So
Wonderful.
first off, I want to ask
I'm really
you,
happy to speak with you too, Cindy.
oh, my gosh. Well, listen to this. This is like a love affair right from the get-go. Emily warned me about this. She's like, you're going to fall in love with this guy. So my hope is if I do my job right, then everyone else will fall in love with you and with your product. I have to say that there is a tremendous amount that can be inspiring interviewing somebody who spends so much time, like you do, empowering and embracing women, what they do, who they are, what they have, what they contribute, things like that. So I want to start off. I like my audience to hear about the personal side of someone first. So first of all, I want you to tell folks, because I know that you've got a background. Obviously, I see that you studied in physics, to tell you the truth, which is an interesting occupation, I would gather. So tell the folks a bit about how you went from being a physics guy to going off and deciding that you want to make women feel pretty 24/7.
Wonderful. So I grew up in Miami and ended up at Cornell studying applied and engineering physics, which was fascinating and completely impractical if I didn't want to be a world-class physicist. But it gave me, it was not only interesting, but it also gave me the sense that I could, if I studied things, I could, be successful with them, regardless of how difficult or how esoteric they were. And I actually studied Japanese language after college, and because I'd spent some time in Japan in high school, I'd won a scholarship for an exchange and spent a summer in Yokohama with a family. And my brother from that family lived with me my senior year. And as I was about to graduate, I realized that I still had this desire to learn more about Japan. And I knew enough about Japan that I needed the foundation of the language. And after a 12-month immersive language program, also at Cornell, I went to Japan for a while for fun, and then September 11th happened. So that dates me. And there were no jobs in the United States. So I actually went to Tokyo looking for work, unsuccessfully, I might add, for a bunch of months. And what my first career was with very complex medical diagnostic imaging equipment, specifically PET and PET-CT scanners. And I was managing my company's relationship with Toshiba in Japan. And it was wonderful. And I was a kid with way too much responsibility, doing business internationally, mostly with Japan, getting to go to Japan for work a couple of times a year. It was wonderful. And then actually this isn't the first time I reinvent myself. While I was there, I had an idea for a software company. It was about 2006, and I decided to quit my job and move back to Miami, which is where I'm from, and pursue this business. And a couple of months into it, I realized that I could either hire developers, raise money and hire developers, or I thought to myself, well, I have this fancy engineering degree. Why don't I be the programmer? And a year later, I had a product. This first company I was creating wholesale order management software for specialty food manufacturers. And after I had a product, it took about a year before I knew how to sell that product. And that company was wonderful, and I learned, I was doing sales trainings for multi-million-dollar pieces of medical equipment in my previous career, not knowing anything about sales, because and you probably know this, until you're selling on the ground, you don't learn anything. And
right.
so I started this business. I got a lot of support. I figured out how to sell the product. I had a bunch of wonderful clients, but I made some rookie mistakes. Not a large enough market, not enough money in the market, and it was software as a service, and truthfully, I was a couple of years ahead of my time. People were still getting comfortable with Gmail at that point. And I spent the next 10 years in software, working with great teams. I was a CTO of a company that helped families save money for college.
Right.
At one point in my career, I became a Google Ads expert. My most recent software job, though, I was the first developer of a Y Combinator funded company. So I was hired actually as a software developer, which I loved. And then I finished there as the head of marketing, because I was good at growth too. But this is where it intersects with now. And my wife actually had cancer, breast cancer, and it was a combination of that. And I was turning 39 at the time, about a year and a half ago. And I'm a goal setter, so I was setting my goals for when I turned 50. And I asked myself if I wanted to be a software millionaire when I was 50, and the answer was not really. And that was in spite of loving software and loving software development and, having all this experience in startups and, being good at it. And the next question was, well, what should I do if I don't want to do that? And I fell in love with a concept, actually, this phrase. I call it, I decided I wanted to create a taste business. So it was a business whose products and services were a direct representation of my personal Sergio Mendoza's individual taste. And I felt that was the best way for me to use not just, the specific skills of software development or even like startup world stuff, and more fully express myself. And it also, especially at that time in my life, became very important for me to emphasize people and just how wonderful those relationships could be. And I wanted to put myself in a place where I could do that.
Right.
And so I considered a bunch of taste businesses. Jewelry was probably going to win, always. But, I like traditional men's clothing. I thought maybe I would do traditional men's clothing, shirts or ties or jackets or belts or something. I like furniture and home goods. I thought maybe I could create a seminal product and build a business from there. But I wasn't excited about those businesses because, to me, they required factories in China, working with retail, and the possibility that in spite of being successful, you might not make any money. But I've always had a love for jewelry, mostly because of grandmother indoctrination, where they would open their treasure chests and share their favorite pieces and the stories behind them. And, I said, well, 10 years ago, I didn't know anything about software. I've got 10 years. I'm going to start a taste business in jewelry. And since diving in, I am where I am today, which is I'm now designing cocktail rings for women.
Right.
And
exactly.
It's been pretty exciting.
Well, and here I thought the physics was actually going to mean yes. You know what? People love listening to you more than me. Let me tell you, I sound like a boy. So I'm like, I don't even know why I'm doing this right now. So let's talk to Sergio and let him do the deal, which is fine. I was thinking that the word physics might have meant yes, because he works with nature, so he can give me a natural product and we can develop wine together. But apparently that's not going to happen. So I get it. We're going to deal with the ring thing. That's perfectly fine. I do have a question,
we could develop some wine together.
Yes, Sergio and wine. I'm on it. Emily, did you hear that? We got another product now, and it's booze, and we're loving it. Okay, so question about Florida, because I've never been to you're in Key Biscayne, so forgive me if I said that wrong, but
Key Biscayne.
Tell us a bit about, tell me a bit about that area, because I know we're coming to Florida. We have an event that's coming up in the very near future, in April 6th, actually. And so we're going to be in Orlando. So I was trying to figure out where you are, and obviously, of course, how can you send your weather to us? Because we're in New York. I mean, it's decent, and Wisconsin, I'm in part of the time. But what's it like living there? And tell me a bit about what it's like to be a jeweler in that particular industry, in that particular area. Is it more beneficial? And, of course, tell me why there. Is that where you're from originally?
It's very interesting. It's very interesting. So I grew up 3 blocks away from where I live. And the island, it's an island. It's an island pretty much right off the mainland from downtown Miami. You have to take a series of bridges to get there. It is, when I was growing up, it was a beach community. Lots of, Korean War and that type of veterans with GI Bill purchasing houses here. It was very casual, and it's changed a lot. As Miami's grown and Miami's become more cosmopolitan, Key Biscayne has changed a great deal as well. And we're an island. And what's ended up happening is that the community ties that we started off with a good framework for have only strengthened. And it's become really a magical place. Every single house on my block has children now. I joke that a lot of people that live on Key Biscayne are not from the United States, and no one has taken the time to explain to them that the United States is dangerous. So they let their kids ride bike to their friends' houses and play in the park and do things that we know are really good, and that we all grew up with and that we don't see very much anymore. We have, it's a pleasure to be here. We drive around in golf carts. Half the entire east side of the island has a beach on it. It's beautiful. The weather is perfect all year for us. It might be too hot for some in the summer. It's probably too hot for most in the summer. But,
I imagine.
It's really a magical place. I'm surrounded by family. That's something that was really important to me. My parents, my in-laws. I feel like it's an incredible place for me to raise my children. The school that we are part of, the community. So I didn't really have a choice as to where I was going to live. So as a jeweler, it's been very interesting seeing what the strengths of Miami are. And I think there are a few strengths. One is something that you can see anywhere in the world now, which is your business can be distributed. The people on your team can be in all different places. My rings are all produced in a workshop. My workshop in Istanbul, in Turkey. My visual brand friend is in New York. My public relations team is in New York and Fort Lauderdale. I made this decision so that I could be with my family as much as possible. And but there are certain things that are pretty amazing about Miami as a market, specifically for my style of ring. And that is, I think that we're a visual culture here. So not only it's a place where people are comfortable expressing themselves through material stuff. So like maybe you could, broadly put that into the category of superficial. But that's good because, I'm making a material product. I think that we have the benefit of 12 months of good weather, essentially, which is great when you want to do things indoors, outdoors. You want to have, a continuity of seasons. we have a lot of there's a lot of money here. Miami has really grown up as a city, whereas I felt like it wasn't cosmopolitan when I was growing up. It very much is now. And one of the things that I don't think many people outside of the fashion industry realize is that Miami is actually one of the centers of the fashion community. During the bad weather months, every winter, if you want to photograph your summer season catalog, you do that in Miami Beach, South Beach. We're in the United States. There's lots of people with great skills. This is all very new to me. I'm very not from the fashion world, so I'm really, meeting people and, trying to learn and really respecting people's expertise. But, I've met many incredible makeup artists and producers and photographers and videographers and models and all these people that are real specialists in what they're doing that, in my mind, if I was living in a different city, I might not have access to. So that's very exciting about Miami.
Oh, my gosh, I bet. Absolutely. Well, and the other thing, too, I wanted to mention is, of course, clearly market to market, it's always a little bit different. But I've noticed one of the nice things about your line is that, and we'll get into this in just a minute, but I think it's a perfect market based on where you are. Second of all, I love the fact that you have, and I want to say a statement to this, and I'm hoping, I wasn't quite sure if I should mention this to you, but one of the things that I noticed on the website that stood out to me was, and we're going to talk about this, we'll switch gears a second here. You made this lovely statement about I've read about your mother, I've read about your grandmother, obviously I've read about Sarah. You mentioned this lovely statement called "She is my Athena," which I just found so very moving and lovely. I'm not sure. I think it's probably almost pertinent and very, very necessary that we speak, if it's okay with you, about your wife a bit.
Yeah.
It was very, very inspiring.
So the website is very personal. So that's one of the first things that I did, and it was uncomfortable. I'm from a generation that we didn't share, and we created personas, that represented us, and I made the decision to be not only personal but intimate. Very early on, and in the last year or so that I've been doing this, I've realized that that's probably the most important thing, and I think it's very important to be personal, to be intimate, and to be true. And so a couple of things. One of the things that I express in my website is that I am very much a product of the influence of the powerful women in my life. And the description of "She's my Athena" was actually about my mom, for a ring that is called Shield of Athena. But the story about my wife is that she was incredible, and we have 2 children, and she died about a year and a half ago, November 2018, and so I'm a widow. So it's one of the things that definitely defines my life, and I'm on my own as a parent, and I think that it's one of the reasons why I'm building Pharoun in the way, that's the name of the company, the way that I am. And it's really put kind of the importance of people and relationships and really kind of as the most important thing that we can do.
Absolutely.
I loved software, and I loved being behind a computer, and I loved the teams that I worked with, but, people are awesome, and that's where I want to spend my time.
Absolutely. In fact, when I was reading, that was the other thing that came to mind. you speak a bit, of course, about your sister, your mother, your grandmother. So obviously females have left quite a powerful impression on you, clearly. So tell us a bit about your mother and your grandmother, because I know, of course, they were they originally born and raised in Cuba, as a matter of fact. And then tell us a bit about how they have kind of left that landmark or signature mark on you, meaning not just in your rings, but you as a person.
Yeah, so I was very much brought up by my mother's mother's mother, my mother's mother, my father's mother. That's two grandmothers, a great-grandmother, my mother, my sister, and I have lots of wonderful girls as friends in my life. I'm very Cuban, so almost all parts of my family were in Cuba for centuries, and then everybody left with Castro. My father came to the U.S. when he was about 12, and my mother, with a little bit of time in Long Island, ended up growing up in Barcelona. But my grandmothers, both of them, and I feel like this is a pretty typical story, and I think that we shouldn't be surprised by it at all. But when, the family had the disruption of Cuba, where, essentially they had to start life from scratch again, the ones that really rose to it were the women. My grandmother, my father's mother, raised 10 kids. My grandfather was there, but my grandmother was the one, making sure that they were all doing well and working and feeding and, these amazing things that women, especially mothers, do. And my grandmother was the same thing. These men who were wonderful and smart and really educated and all these things, when you look at it retrospectively, were probably, shell-shocked or, really, traumatized by the Cuba experience. And my grandmothers probably were too, except they didn't let that stop them.
And, of course not.
So there's been these so that's my great grandmother was similar, but one of the patterns that I've seen in my life, and truthfully I don't think it's an exception at all, is how big of an impact these women have on generations. I'm talking about my great grandmother. That's 3 generations ago, and her impact on me, as an example.
Sure.
So actually, I feel very fortunate, or I've always felt that my experience was special. And the more that I actually interact with women, and the more that I sit with them for my business, I realize that whereas when I started Pharoun, I was accustomed to being surrounded by powerful, independent, amazing women. And my hypothesis with Pharoun was that that's the way that all women were. And if anything, I've been humbled in that approach and realized that all women are powerful. There's no exceptions to that. And it's become, if there's a spectrum, and I actually like the word honor a lot, if there's a spectrum of honoring women, and the world's kind of on one side, I'm kind of, in the middle. But if I actually want to, do something about it, I have a long way to go. And I think that's, I'm really excited about that.
Oh, absolutely. And there's such power in, I think oftentimes us as women, and keep in mind, obviously, we all know we live in this society, and as much as we all say, oh, yes, we're empowering to one another, I do think all of us women sometimes love to get a pat on the back, and in this particular case, you are a male business owner, which is so cool. You've decided to take a line that's inspired by such powerful women and turn around and make an impact on hundreds or thousands of other women. That's huge, absolutely huge. One of the things that I thought about, and people, you should know this that are listening in, one of the rings that you put together, obviously, which is named after your daughter, and please pronounce her name because I'm sorry, I don't want to say, is it Anais?
It's Anais.
Okay, gotcha. There you go. Apparently, the ring that you put together benefits the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And I think that's so important to mention because obviously we understand why this is important to you. But talk to us a bit about how you originally approached them. And, of course, the fact that 100% of the profits are going back to them is phenomenal. So where did that alliance come from? And then, of course, oh, yeah, that's correct, 100% of the price.
If you pay, the ring is $295. You pay $295, and that money, $295, goes to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation.
Oh, my God. You're my personal hero right now. Thank you so much. Tell us a bit about that particular ring, because I want people to know about that.
So that's another story about women.
Yes.
So I'm a very happy and very optimistic person. That's the way I choose to live every day, except about cancer. I'm not a good person to talk to about cancer. And I had a friend who sat with me and really, it would have been very easy for me to not talk about cancer, the rest of my life. That's a much more pleasant choice. And I had a friend that sat with me, and she inspired me to reconnect with my fight against breast cancer. And, I designed rings. So I designed a ring. And then part of my design that's very important to me is, like you have mentioned a couple of times, is the naming and the descriptions and the way that the story behind each ring. And so I designed this ring, and then I didn't name it after my wife. I named it after my daughter. And, I think that's the idea is that, I want to do something about this horrible disease that we really want to exterminate. And the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, its primary goal is to fund leading-edge research for breast cancer, and with the understanding that that is the way that we're going to eliminate the disease. And they're run by an amazing team, and the founder was one of the people that was the person that popularized the pink ribbon. They're very well established. They've been amazing to work with, and I really believe in their approach to combating and their commitment to ending breast cancer. So I'm really excited to work with them. It's all about, I just want to have hope for my daughter. So this is the way I'm translating that.
That is so amazing. I'm a professional writer, and I've been doing this for 25 years, and I have no idea the words to put together of how heroic and hugely important and life-impacting that really is. You really have such a labor of love on your hands. And folks, just so you know this, you're actually the designer. You have an intricate process. You play an intricate part in this process in terms of putting this together. And I love the fact that you admitted flat out, I'm still learning every day. I'm still trying to figure out, how to make these bigger and better, et cetera. So you're very humble about the fact that, no, you don't know everything there is about designing these and putting these together as far as that goes. And, of course, as I understand it, so these are comprised of crystals, and, of course, they're gold-plated over silver. And so tell me a bit about when you sit down to do your designs. Like, for instance, I'm a professional writer, so when I sit down, there's a process that I have. So do you have a particular process for how you put the jewels together? And then, moreover, let's say typically from start to finish, your average ring, just an average one, turnaround time from the actual design phase to getting it out there.
Yeah, no, and the answers to these questions are things that I'm, continuously learning and trying to improve on. One of the things that's impressed me the most about the design process, so there's there's kind of one conviction that I alluded to earlier, which is about taste and about specifically my personal taste. So the first challenge for me in this entire business was really, instead of saying I like this and I don't like this, to actually design physical products, you actually have to decide that, 1.1 centimeters is your taste, but 1.05 centimeters is not your taste. And putting hard rules on what defines my taste was very difficult. And I'm sure with writing, it's probably similar when you're, really seeking self-expression.
Absolutely.
And then the design process, there's really two different parts of the design process, two different starting points. One of them is an idea, and it can be a loose sketch, it can be an idea, it can be a concept. And translating that into an actual ring that can be produced is a long road. Every now and then I get a win, where I started off with an idea and it comes out as a ring. But what I've been really surprised about is how much of the design practice is a craft in itself. And it's really about diving deep into the details of small aspects of construction, of aesthetics, of, forms or proportions and trying to look at that specific detail and try to improve it or try to move that idea forward, that sometimes I get a ring out of those discoveries. So it's much more of a trudging of, really just dedicating to, let me explore this particular pattern deeply and, start it with one guess, another guess. Oh, I like this guess. Let's move it forward a little bit. Let's move it forward again. Let's move it forward again. Oh, wow, I'm in love with this. How can I include this in one of my rings? And then one of the interesting things, so you mentioned the materials that I use. So 22 karat gold over sterling silver. And then I use a form of glass, which is a crystal, that represent idealized gemstones, which are also hand faceted, just like a natural stone. But I actually make all of my designs without color because I have access to essentially perfect stones in any cut and any dimension that I want. And it's been one of the most interesting parts of my design is once I have a design that I'm in love with and that I want to produce, then I actually get to see how that design is expressed in different colors and different color combinations. Building blocks that are necessary for all of this are, I have the owner of the workshop has produced a lot of jewelry. And this man, Halil, is we have a great relationship of being able to take my designs and he puts them into a 3D modeling software with me. So I go to Istanbul a couple of times a year to sit with him and have him, take my ideas or my designs or my sketches and put them into 3D modeling software. And 3D modeling software really has changed the world because we're starting off at my sketch, but we're then translating into 3D modeling software, which is designed specifically for jewelry, and it's amazing. But then we iterate. I make changes and edit and improve on the 3D version of the design until I think it's perfect. And then that eventually becomes a mold and then some samples. And then when you're actually producing these things, so usually when the samples come back, we still need to work out manufacturability or producibility. And my designs have only become more and more complex and more challenging to create. And this is another thing that my relationship with this workshop has been incredible about, is that these sorts of problems to manufacture these pieces, we're able to look at them and solve them. So as complex and as, difficult as it might be to produce my designs, we're like a craft, continuously improving its producibility. Each one of the rings is made, the other thing that's really interesting about the jewelry world is how much of how specialized each step in the process is. So the mold makers are mold makers, the smelters are smelters, the people that make the wax for the wax forms that are use the lost wax casting technique are specialized. All the gem setters, all of the polishers, everybody is very specialized. And I've benefited, and a big part of my taste is being able to see the explicit quality in one of my pieces. I've really benefited because all the people working on my rings are the same people that work on the finest jewelry in the world. The gem setters are the diamond gem setters. Every person in the process is an expert in what they do, and they just happen to make my rings as well. And that's been a huge triumph because I'm able to give. One of the biggest things for me has been accessibility, and I'm able to give women something that's truly extraordinary at still an expensive price, but I try to make all of my rings $295. So a couple of paychecks of saving maybe, but at least accessible to a broader range of women, and that's very important to me.
Oh, and not to mention the fact, of course, the whole 22-karat gold thing is one component. The fact that you're personally designing is another component. The ideology behind it, obviously. And then here's the other thing, too. I thought it was so neat. Tell me a bit about, you're the first person I've seen, and again, I haven't met every jeweler in the world, but you offer these free ring sizers. And I thought that was kind of cool. I was like, what's up with that? The guy's offering me a free ring sizer, which is kind of cool. And I'm like, where'd he come up with that idea, right? Am I wrong? I'm like, that's dope. Literally, I'm like, cool. Tell me why you're doing that. That's cool.
So they're beautiful. One of the things that is really, so I'm doing a lot of things, maybe as an overreaction to my digital world experience, but I'm doing a lot of things by hand. So if you buy one of my rings from me, or if you receive one of my rings from me, I actually handwrite your name in a book that includes all of the women that have one of my rings. I have this beautiful stationery, and I created this ring sizer out of this stationery as well. And Cindy, I think that great marketing is all about empathy and just understanding kind of different steps in the process. And it's just a challenge. The way that I look at it is not only does a woman need to know her ring size, but also with a cocktail ring as a representation of a woman, as a personal representation of a woman to the world. That includes what finger they wear it on, where a woman wears it on, whether they stack it, whether they combine it with old jewelry, whether they, the personal way that they wear a ring. So it's not only the design, the color, but it's also the finger. And, this is a part of the accessibility as well. I want women to feel comfortable, finding the right ring for themselves. This isn't walk into a place and, here's a ring if you like it or not, or, we can offer you a custom thing at uncostly amounts. For me, I want a woman to feel comfortable. I want her to be able to make the decisions about which ring is perfect for her, and knowing the size of each of her fingers. I have women that wear my rings on their pinkies, on their forefingers. I don't know how many thumbs I have, but, every woman, every finger, every ring is a different personality. And, this is just a tool to help them find the perfect ring.
Oh, my gosh, how awesome is that? Look at that. And the other thing that I think is really cool is The name of your company is called, and let's see if I can pronounce this right. No, probably not. The company name is, go ahead.
It's
Pharoun?
It's Pharoun. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's
okay.
So it's Pharaoun.
That's what I was about to ask. I would like to know if there's a particular meaning for why you chose that name for your company.
Yeah. So the name is is an interpreted name, and really, for me, what it does for me is that it reminds me of the great tastemakers of history, including the Egyptians, like the pharaohs, which the name is very similar to. But I also wanted to capture some enigma as well. You know, I wanted a powerful name that made that could draw its own associations. To me, it's become a special name. It was a name that was a vessel that I could apply kind of what I wanted to it. And to me, it's a combination of, you know, the great tastemakers of history, you know, the Egyptians included. And I also really created this name for what it isn't as well. So it's not a name that is, it's a name that cultivates enigma. And, you know, I wasn't interested, for example, in pretending like I was French or Italian or anything else. I wanted a name that, you know, really could come to symbolize my designs and my vision and, you know, these cocktail rings that I'm bringing to the world.
I also had to ask the other question. With the base rate of, and forgive me for asking these questions, but oftentimes people that listen into the show are not in your same neighborhood, so we want to know and understand some of this. I know that the bottom line price range is $295 and they range up to $500. Now, I'm going to guess that has everything to do with the type of jewels that are involved, as well as I'm curious, because I live in Wisconsin, for instance, so I know that obviously different markets call for different things, that sort of stuff. So how do you decide to price out something like that? Because obviously I can imagine it's probably very difficult to try to ascertain with that kind of level of jewelry. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, how do you put that price scale together? And does that work? I'm guessing it works well, because I'm here to tell you folks, just get this. Let me just brag about you for a minute. Oh, go ahead.
No, the price scale is really about accessibility. So I try to make all of my rings $295. So that you know, some rings are more. So truthfully, it's all about the weight of the materials and the complexity.
Gotcha.
But $295 is a very important price point for me because it's accessible. You know, maybe I'm coming from a completely warped perspective, but I think that that's an accessible price. But, you know,
absolutely, like
$295 feels like something that, you know, if you save for, you can get, you know, whoever you might be. And that's very important for me. The prices are going to be, for the most part, 90% of my rings, 80% of my rings at $295. And then there's certain special rings that it's just impossible for them to be that price. And they're huge and elaborate and really just like completely, you know, in a different world of rings. And those are more, you know, rings for celebrations or events. At least that's the way that I look at them. But, you know, for me, if it were up to me, I'd want them all to be $295 because that for me, that's a very symbolic price for the world.
Gotcha. Absolutely. Well, and the other thing, too, is I want to mention this. You founded your company in 2018. Within the last year, folks, just so you know, I've seen him. He was featured in Ocean Drive Magazine, Indulge Miami Magazine, mentioned in Wear Miami. He was in the Miami Herald. And very recently I saw that you were filming. How did the Deco Drive thing go? Because I saw that you did this campaign very recently, so I was curious to see how things turned out. Seriously, how'd it go?
Well, I haven't seen it yet. But it happened.
Okay.
It went as you could imagine. My first television show going. I was nervous, and I was trying to find the right words. And I was happy because they focused a lot on the on taking images of the rings. So hopefully, instead of showing me being nervous and mumbling my words, they'll show the rings and they can speak for themselves.
Gotcha. Well, I saw the pictures and I was like, oh my God, that so does not look like a man who is nervous or worried. Yes, and you're doing phenomenal. I mean, absolutely. You look like a natural as far as that goes. And I'm curious about how your children take to this, because obviously there's such significance surrounding the entire line, et cetera. And I know that your kids aren't necessarily grown up per se, but how do they react to this sort of thing in terms of the line itself and, of course, Dad having kind of a different life now? How are they embracing all of this?
I'm really fortunate in that I can parent a lot. And I can spend a lot of time with them. And I can, kids need love, a lot of love on a regular day. And, my kids need, let's say more love.
Sure.
But I've been able to really kind of, I feel like I've really been able to be a strong parent. I'm very fortunate for that, that I feel like I can parent on my own. Give them a lot of love. It's actually really important that my children are included in the business. I make decisions with the knowledge of my great-grandparents, and I'd like to think that I make decisions for my great-grandchildren. This idea of legacy is really important to me, and that's one of the reasons why this has been such an exciting business to create, and one of the exciting reasons to include my children in it is that I'd like for them to be a part of it. I want them to see it. I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial household. Money was taboo as a topic, and I'd really like to give my children a strong business foundation, and to me that's all the mechanics of business. From, helping me clean the cases that my rings are displayed in, to the way that I treat the women who come to find the perfect ring for themselves, to making it something normal. I'd love, my son says that he is the designer of a couple of the rings, and he is. And I'd like to encourage them and include them as much as I possibly can. And they are, my son's Sergio is 7, and my daughter Anais is 3. And I'm trying to make it completely normal and completely part of their life. And so that's really important for me.
Oh, well, and the other thing, too, is I've also noticed this line, I'm going to guess, is primarily for bigger ladies, without lack of a better term to put it that way. So I'm curious if you designed anything, meaning does your daughter come to you and say, well, Dad, I can't wear any of these rings. Do you know what I'm saying? Like something that she would want to wear for herself?
Do you have a daughter?
I have a daughter, of course, but you do too. That's why I'm curious. Like,
no, I know, but she doesn't care if it fits. She's going to take it anyway.
I get your point. I'm like, okay, then.
She wants it. If it's pink, even better. She doesn't care if she has more than one of the same one. It's actually really, I'm excited about how much she enjoys jewelry. I'm excited how much my son enjoys jewelry. My rings are all large, 22-karat gold, traditional, elegant rings. And so it's actually a challenge for me to broaden her jewelry education. So, for example, the other day I bought a bracelet specifically for her, specifically with the intent of broadening her education. And mind you, it's exquisitely made. But I got her a bracelet that looks like barbed wire because, let her wear barbed wire bracelets also. For me, that's not inconsistent with, a woman's ability to express herself.
Gotcha.
I was going to use a bunch
that's
of
why
curse words in there, but I didn't know if I was allowed to.
Oh, no, of course you are. We're a pretty liberal show here, so you don't have to worry too much about that kind of stuff. Feel free to say just about whatever comes to mind there. No, I'm like, it's impossible to ask, especially when you've got a daughter. Clearly, it's obvious that they want to, embrace and enjoy something, and especially because every ring is inspired by a strong woman. You want your customers to see themselves either within the ring or find a part of themselves they didn't know, or maybe even find that one woman that we all aspire to be. Like, for instance, I talk all the time about being Wonder Woman. I'm very, very fortunate. Some people actually call me Wonder Woman, and I'm like, gosh, what would I look like if I wore this ring or this ring, which is such an empowering thing. We forget our uniqueness sometimes, and this is a beautiful physical living reminder. Obviously, of course, I see you have a total of 12 different collections because I've seen and looked at every one. Apparently, word on the street is, and one of my favorites, I will not lie to you folks, I am beautiful. Well, what better collection to sit and look at than I am beautiful? I mean, that just says absolutely everything right there, doesn't it? Maybe it's just me, but I'm like, okay. So you've got the 12 different lines here, and clearly let's walk through this. Let's say somebody's listening today, and they want to go ahead and they want to order a ring. So then normally do they go online? They order it specifically through there? Do you have a showroom set up there? Because I'm guessing you probably don't have like a retail space at this point in time. So tell folks a bit about how do they get your product if they want it, they see something they like.
Yeah, so the website is set up as a typical online shopping experience. The only difference is that I'm there to handhold you through the process. So I say in the website, I say that I don't want to pick a ring for you. I want to do everything possible so that you can find the right ring for yourself.
Correct.
So I try to describe each of the rings in detail. There's really beautiful photos. There you can amplify. You can see in very large and high resolution. If you don't know your ring size, that's fine. I'd love to send you a ring size card for free.
Nice.
I think that I have to warn any women listeners, female listeners out there, that chances are you're going to find yourself in more than one of my rings. And that's part of it. You have to say, okay, I'm this person that wears this type of ring, and I'm also this person that wears this other type of ring. And really, I just want to give you the opportunity to allow yourself to make that decision for yourself. That's my way of allowing you to honor yourself.
Oh, my gosh, how lovely is that? Well, and the other thing, too, is, of course...
And if you're in Miami, you can come visit me and see them all and try them on. and I do have a showroom.
How cool is that? You do have a showroom. Okay, gotcha. I wanted to make sure to clarify that because I'm like, if people come into town and they're looking for something different, like, I want to pick up something to take home, hello, this is the absolute perfect place to be going to get something like this because I love the personal element. I love the fact that they're so beautiful. And, folks, when you go to the website, you're going to see it's different colors. It's different looks. And it means different things. Everyone is really, you've hit the mark on every single woman that could possibly exist. Do you know what I'm saying? And I find that to be phenomenal.
I'm just getting started, Cindy.
I was just going to say, and I'm sure that this is one of many things, right? I don't want to forget to mention this because it's so important. I know on March 1st that you had been at an event, which you support, as I understand it, on a regular basis. So I didn't want to forget to mention there was a benefit for the Friends of Caritas? Why can't I talk today?
Caritas, yeah. That's okay.
Yes,
it's Friends of Caritas or Caritas Cubana. And
exactly.
It's turned out that I actually have been helping out with a bunch of charities, but this one was really special to my wife, and it's become, very special to me. And a group of women 20 years ago decided that they wanted to help some of the people that needed the most help in Cuba, and they wanted to do it without politics. And these women figured out a way to get the money to these underserved communities in Cuba, and essentially we do it through the Vatican. So all the money we raise goes to the Vatican, and then it actually goes to Cuba because Cuba doesn't receive aid, right? So they figured out a way to get the money into Cuba. And then these women, who are fantastic, go to Cuba multiple times a year and make sure that the money is used as it was intended to be used. So, the communities that we serve are groups like autistic children, seniors. These are communities that are a challenge even in the first world. Cuba, the alternative might be being in a room that's locked all day. That's the other option. So I'm really proud to be a part of that organization, and we have an annual event, every spring. And the March 1st event was spectacular, and we raised more money than we ever had, and it's been amazing being a part of that effort.
Oh my gosh, I imagine so. My goodness gracious. Well, Emily was right. I did fall in love with you. I fall in love with all of my guests, and all of my guests are celebrities, but there's just such a very personal note to this, and it's so very empowering and lovely. And can you believe we've been talking for an hour? I say this all the time to people. I'm like, can you believe this time goes by like...
for many more.
Oh, my gosh, you're so sweet. Well, unfortunately, sadly, I actually have another show shortly, so of course I have to host another guest today, so we have to make sure that we have time. There's a couple of things that I need to do on the business perspective. First of all, just so that you know, and the people that are listening in, about 2 hours after this show gets completed, I send it off, the Blog Talk Radio link as well as the link to YouTube, so it gets uploaded to my YouTube channel so everybody can go ahead and listen to it. So that's number one. I have a list I'm going to read off of all the places to find you, and when I get finished, just let me know if I've missed anything, if you would. So here we go. Pharoun Cocktail Rings is who we've been speaking with today. The owner himself is Sergio Mendoza. These are the following places to find him. Number one, we have the website itself, and again, it's www.pharaoun.com. There's an Instagram, which is Pharoun Cocktail Rings. There's a Facebook page, which is Pharoun, as well as, of course, your personal page. The charity we were just speaking about is Friends at, and I'll spell it, it's Caritas. It's Caritas, and that, oh goodness, I can't read the, it looks like is it CULBANA.org?
Friends of Caritas Cubana. So it's CARITAS, and then like Cuba, CUBANA.
Thank you so much.
And then we have and then we also, very importantly, have the Anais ring, which 100% of the price is going to be donated to the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, which I believe is the largest funder of private cancer research in the United States and probably the world.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think you're 100% right as far as that goes. That's absolutely awesome. And so we have that. We have you on, let me see where else. I said YouTube. I said LinkedIn. We've got your Instagram. Oh, yes, your personal Instagram, which is Sergio, SERGIO, then underscore ANDRES, and then underscore MENDOZA. And if I'm not mistaken, you are not on Twitter. Is that correct? I just want to clarify. I don't want to speak out of turn.
Not yet.
Okay, gotcha. I kind of figured as much. And then if any of you folks want to go ahead and support the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, that's www.bcrf.org. Any other places where people can find you, or events that are coming up that you might be a part of or participating in through your line or yourself?
Yeah, so if you want to visit the showroom, you can send me an email at visit, VISIT, at Pharoun, PHARAOUN.com, located in Key Biscayne, near Miami, Florida. And the events that are coming up, I'm really looking forward to hosting events specifically to promote the Anais ring and the Breast Cancer Research Foundation.
Sure.
So we'll keep you informed about those, and if there's anybody that wants to be a part of that effort, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, that's wonderful. Now, I don't know if you've ever looked at. I'm okay. I haven't gone to TV yet, or radio. Yeah, TV yet. I don't know that you've ever listened to one of my radio shows, but the very last thing that we do on air is I get to do two things. I get to surprise you, and then I get to tell you what I think of you. And then I will let you off the hook and go off to your wonderful day, if that's all right with you. So I am big on
like
surprises. Emily knows this. I absolutely love giving surprises because people never see it coming. And luckily for me, I have the good fortune of being able to, I've been in the business long enough, to where I can offer things to people, and I'm very blessed about that. And I don't want to forget to mention this at the top of the hour. Emily Taffel is the reason why that we're on the show right now. Emily is one of my favorite people in the entire world. First of all, I started off meeting her. We both do PR, which is how I found you, of course, but she's a phenomenal person. She's a phenomenal publicist. She has a heart of gold, and she's probably one of my favorite people in the entire world. So from me to you, Emily, another wonderful client. Actually, the interview after this is another client. So thank you, Emily, of Muggsy PR for this. Okay, so here we go on the surprises. Let's hope Emily doesn't have a heart attack and say, why did she just say that? But I'm going to ask you anyway. Number one, I don't know if you know this or not, but word on the street is that I might be fortunate enough to be, I picked out a ring from you from the I Am Beautiful collection, which I'm so excited about. Now, why am I excited? Because number one, I'm not sure how often this happens, but I do a lot of red carpet events because I'm a freelance journalist. So, number one is I have a red carpet event that's coming up. I think you've heard of Tribeca Film Festival, right? In New York? Hello? Oh, no.
Yep.
We found.
Oh,
can you hear me now?
It.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
good.
No,
I wasn't sure if I
I'm
lost
sorry,
you there. I'm like, oh, my
that.
God, where did it go?
No. I've definitely heard of Tribeca Film Festival. It's arguably the most important one.
Well, I mean, I have tried for years and years and years to finally get press credentials to Tribeca. Well, this year I finally scored it. I got it. And so myself and my partner are attending Tribeca Film Festival. And since, of course, that's a whole lot of red carpet and that's De Niro's big deal, I thought what better place to wear a big deal piece of jewelry than at Tribeca. So you, my friend, will have your product on a red carpet at Tribeca Film Festival this year. That's number one. Number two, there's no...
Do you want the regular white one, or would you like the rainbow one?
I don't know. That I'm going to have to think about. I will tell you that much. I was just excited to be able to say, okay, so first you're going to be at the film festival. Number two, if you don't mind, I thought I would take that same ring and turn around because I'm a filmmaker, and I'm in the process of shooting my film. So I thought, what better way to get the word out on a product than to physically wear it in a film? So I will be wearing your ring when I do my scene in my film. So now you're going to be in film. You're now going to be at a film festival. Oh, it gets better. Then there's number
I've
three.
I've heard about your films. I really want to see them. The 100 Love scene sounds amazing.
100 Looks of Love, yes. And it's funny because we're leading right into that. So this is number three. I am doing a movie called 100 Looks of Love, and I sat back and thought about this. And I thought to myself, I know that you don't know the backstory to it, but the long story short is it really is 100 Looks of Love. And I, in reading things, had contemplated this and thought there is no better homage for a person's life besides their legacies for their children and their own powerful way to have moved people. I, at the end of the movie, have a collage. And in that collage is all sorts of pictures and memories from people that have been kind enough to send me, including Emily's, memories of 100 Looks of Love. And I thought if it would be okay with you, I would like to put your wife in that collage.
Wow. That'd be amazing.
I just felt it was necessary. Yes, I think it's another way to keep her memory alive, and I think that's what the whole movie is about. So that's number three. And number four, we'll save for the biggest one. This is kind of big, too. So I don't know if you know this or not, but my partner, Michael, and myself, we have a clothing line together, and we're doing what we call a Film and Frocks tour, and you had mentioned about doing events. So it just so happens that this trip, in the beginning of April, we're going to Orlando, but we were just talking today about coming back to Miami. So if we come back and we bring our tour with us and we'll find a venue, absolutely love to have you come and you could speak to a live audience. You could talk to them about the rings. We could throw you into our line of programming. If you'd love to join us, we'd love to have you.
It sounds incredible. I'd love that opportunity. Thank you so much.
Oh, my God, he said yes. Oh, my God, and it's a score. Awesome. So in the last 60 seconds I have, because that's all I have, because my next guest is waiting for me, let me just tell you what I think of you, dear Sergio. The nicest part about my interviews is this last minute and a half or two. Not that I don't love my whole show, but this is the only non-scripted part, which means it's straight from my heart to yours, and it literally gives the listening audience some background. So the bottom line is this. One of the reasons that I was so moved to have you on the air is because of the fact that you live and breathe female empowerment. Now, we as females have the ability to empower ourselves. The fact of the matter is that you've led a very long, a very successful, from what I can see, life, personally and professionally, with all these beautiful strokes by all these powerful women that you've been touched by. You've taken a gift from every single one of them, and you've put them into beautiful gems that touch every single woman. You literally, in essence, are a look of love to every single person that you come in contact with. You make it affordable, you make it accessible, and more importantly, you make it extremely personal. That, my dear, is something, you have the gift of touching lives, and that's something that I've been blessed to be able to do through everything that I do, and that makes you special. Second of all, you're raising a beautiful family minus a very beautiful woman, and for that I give you a huge amount of credit for, and I do send you prayers and good wishes that goes well for you. Number 3, all of your ventures include helping people to survive and to thrive and to have a sparkle and a smile. You're an incredible individual. I'm very, very excited at the idea of meeting you, and I hope that I've done you justice through my show. That's the short and the sweet of it.
I'm so grateful for you, Cindy. Thank you so much.
Oh, my gosh, you're too kind. Well, definitely, don't be a stranger. I will reach out to Emily. We'll get all this coordinated for all the different events, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. Thank you so much.
It was perfect. Thank you so much, Cindy. Have a great day.
Anytime, dear. I'll be in touch soon. You too. Bye-bye. Okay, folks, now we're on to round 2. We're going to be talking to Larry Goldberg with DBW. You can tell that I'm having a day, right? Let's try this again. Larry Goldberg is his name. DBW Jewelry. And he's coming on the air now, folks. And here we go. Larry.
Hi there, Cindy. How are you?
I'm very nervous. I'm talking to Larry Goldberg today. I got to tell you, this is a big part of my day. This is probably the spotlight of my day, is talking to you and my other guest. I have a double-decker show today, so I'm so sorry I'm running a bit behind. I apologize. Some of the best things are worth waiting for. Hopefully I will make this a wonderful interview for you. So how are you on this fine day?
I'm doing fantastic. We're having a beautiful day here in sunny South Florida. We're experiencing an amazing spring season so far.
Oh, very, very nice. And you live in, get this, so he's located in Hollywood, Florida. How ironic is that? I'm like, how cool is that? I thought there was only one Hollywood in the world, which means you must be destined for greatness if you live in Hollywood. So why that area? Is there a particular affinity for it?
Well, I grew up in Hollywood. That's where, when my father decided to start over when I was in 8th grade from Connecticut, decided to start over his business world in Florida. That's where he moved us, and so I grew up in my formative years right in Hollywood, Florida. I actually currently recently moved to East Fort Lauderdale to be closer to the fun and the beach, but this is home for most of my life.
Oh, wonderful. And, of course, obviously, who can beat the Florida weather, the Florida sunshine, and most importantly, in that particular neck of the woods, I'm guessing, because I know that you started off in jewelry a long time ago, of course, and we talked about this with my other guests. So in your neck of the woods, are you a niche? You know, because I'm guessing you can have different types of jewelers, but you do something very different. So I imagine you're probably one of the only types of your specific business in that neighborhood.
Certainly locally, there's not a lot here. We do have a merchandise mart down in Miami with some of your more, the normal imports like you would find in New York. But for what we do, we have a very unique operation. We're very much hands-on. We do turnkey jewelry programs, and we have a sizable staff of 35 people that are extremely dedicated and on board with what our mission is.
Oh, how lovely, thank goodness. And, of course, because it's a family business, meaning that you started off a long time ago, I'm going to guess, I guess I have to ask this question. Because it's a family business, were you always of the mindset of, you know what, this is what I'm always going to go into? Or were you going to veer off into something different at the beginning, career-wise, in terms of your big business?
Well, it's an interesting question. It would be ancient history to discuss this, but growing up in Hollywood, Florida, for me, high school was about being on the football team, being the heavyweight wrestler, parties, girls. It was just one big fun time. It was like a coming-of-age movie that you might and I kind of felt at times like one of the stars of the movie. So I really didn't have a vision of being in the jewelry business, because at that time my father had gone through several years of struggling, trying to rebuild his business world in Florida. So I watched lots of difficult times in the family. So I can't say that that was first and foremost in my mind, but opportunities did present themselves through my dad, and that's how I ended up getting into this business, and I found my passion through being in the business.
Oh, and I find it interesting when people have passions in this particular line, and in this case what we're talking about today, folks, is jewelry, clearly. That leads me to believe, because I don't know you as well personally, that's what we're trying to figure out. Do you have other creative avenues outside of that? Because I find, like myself, I'm a writer, but I also can do other things. So I'm curious. Do you paint? Do you write? Do you do something on the artistic side besides the jewelry? Because that's crazy artistic enough.
Actually, not a darn thing.
Larry's like, no, this is it, thank you.
No, sorry about that. So, no, I would say apparently I do have a very creative side that I was unaware of until I became part of the jewelry world.
Sure.
About my main interest at this point in my life, which I started about two years ago, is a daily meditation practice, which I believe has led to the creation of DBW jewelry. It was becoming centered, becoming quiet, and that had given me an avenue, or opened up an avenue to some creative thought, and actually sitting in my meditation space is where a lot of these concepts have come from.
Now that's an interesting subject. In fact, I want to bring that up for a second, and I'd like you to elaborate on that a bit, because constantly people are telling me 24/7, oh, you got to meditate, you got to do yoga, you got to do this, you got to do that. I won't lie to you. I mean, I have a schedule of like 15 people. So tell us a bit about that, how you got to integrate it into it, and people rave about it all the time. So I'm just curious, for a beginner, let's say, if I really was interested, can you recommend to me, how do you get into doing something like that gradually? You know what I mean? Because I imagine it's a full process, right? A full practice and a full process.
Absolutely. Well, it's everything. It's whatever you want it to be. It can be 5 minutes a day. It can be 20 minutes or an hour a day. It's whatever you want to dedicate to it, and whatever gets you where you want to be. For me, I was experiencing in a ever-changing world of technology and shifts in economies, and the world economy opening up, and China opening up, and small retailers struggling and going out of business by the thousands. There was a lot of stress involved, and that's what I chose as my way to counteract that influence. I wanted to clear that and approach my life from a place of peace and joy, and when I made that shift, that's when the creative juices really started to flow for the first time in quite some time. And there are apps that you can download on your iPhone or your Droid that have guided meditations. The one I enjoy is called Insight Timer, and you can either use it as a timer for your meditation, or there's hundreds and hundreds of topics that you can meditate on, whether it's not being able to sleep, or anxiety, or stress, or fear, or love, or whatever it is that you want to focus on.
Oh my God, how lovely is that? My goodness gracious. That is, it does sound like an interesting practice, and I really feel like I just want to be able to delve into it, even if it's just a minute bit. I think self-improvement is such a big, huge thing that some of us neglect to do, so that's important. And speaking of self-care, I understand you just had a birthday recently, so you must have just turned 30, I'm guessing. I was curious to see. Did you do non-jewelry things?
Yeah, I did. Actually, this was a quiet birthday. Last year was my big one, and
okay.
This year was just a quiet evening with family, getting some Chinese food.
Very, very cool. That's absolutely lovely. And of course, when we all own a business, because I own a business as well, it's tough. You're kind of almost dictated by the business and where you have to be and what you have to do, and so it gets to be a little intimidating after a while. So kudos to you to be able to take a little back time as far as that goes, of course. And with this going on, meaning I was curious because I know that originally your family had a factory in Rhode Island, and I'm in New York literally doing this. I come back and forth all the time here in New York City. So I'm curious if you ever get back here to your roots a little bit, or do you even get a chance to come and see family? Because I bet this can be a bit overwhelming and kind of keep you strapped down for a while.
Well, the way I have created my business model, I believe the name of the book was The Entrepreneur Spirit or something of that nature, but it was a very simple read. I read it many years ago, and it talked about if you're going to be a successful entrepreneur, you can't be into the mud of your business every day. You have to be free to create, not buried in stress and tasks and minutia,
right.
Which is why I keep a very talented and very motivated staff around me. I could literally walk away, I mean, not right now while we're launching DBW, but typically I could walk away from this place for weeks at a time and it would not lose a beat, which is a wonderful testament to my staff. And but to answer your question, I do get back to Connecticut. I try to get there at least once a year in the summer to visit mostly friends, childhood friends that I like to stay in touch with. I grew up in the summers on Long Island Sound on the Connecticut side, and many of my friends now have their own cottages at the beach, so that's where I like to go in the summer to reconnect. It's my happy place.
Oh, that's so cool. That is. And, of course, I know that you own the business now with both yourself and your brother, obviously, Mark. So, curiosity question, because I know I work with a partner and sometimes I want to throw things at him. I adore him, but, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, when you're working with your family, does that ever get to be challenging? Because I imagine, you have one mindset, he has one mindset. How do you balance each other? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, it's been very challenging, actually. He's a terrific guy. He's my older brother that I took into the company about 10 years ago. He was a 30-year trial lawyer, and the way I put it to him at the time was I had an opportunity. I was just acquiring my largest distributor. I used to sell distributors before the business model changed, and I was purchasing that company up in Georgia, and I thought, let me rescue Mark from the stress of his law practice, which I literally thought would probably kill him. And I said, Mark, I'm going to save your life. Come join me in business, move to Georgia, and oversee this new business for me. And I think it took him about 4.5 seconds to answer that. Oh. And a couple of years, about 3-4 years after he had moved to Georgia, I had decided that I really needed to be more of a day-to-day part of this new venture, so we moved everything under one roof in Florida. But I have recently convinced my brother to do some of the work that I do with the meditation, conscious community, and such. And so I see ourselves aligning more every day. That he gets deeper into it. He saw the shift in me, so he decided to jump in as well. So I can tell you that the future looks good for the relationship of the brothers.
Oh, lovely. That is. And like I said, I think it's all a matter of really balancing things out. It takes some time to get things organized. You have to have the same kind of vision, which I think is important, clearly. And obviously, you are a product that has a message. And clearly, it's almost like wearing a message on your arm. I said that just the other day. I think I love that concept, the ability to be able to take something, a very big concept, and put it into something so big and beautiful, jewelry-wise, is amazing. And if I had got this right, your company originally opened the doors in 1984, so it's not like you're brand new. You've been around for a significant amount of time. And so one of the biggest questions I have is development of the business over time. If we go back to 1984 versus how business is now, have there been any real subtle changes, or has there been kind of an overhaul? You know what I'm saying?
Well, I would say there's subtle changes every single year that I've been in business, maybe some not so subtle. Drastically changed from when I started. My father, again, was in the time where he was struggling, and my cousin Skippy, that had the jewelry factory in Providence, Rhode Island, gave my father a job as a sales rep for Florida. He then took me on because I was kind of floundering in college. I was so used to being the jock party boy, that I really didn't have great study skills. And he said, Larry, we don't have a whole lot of money, so we see that you're not studying real hard, so how about you come into the business? And 30 days later, I was living in Atlanta, Georgia, with my cousin's sample line, an LCD watch line, and a men's leather goods line. And he said, here's your sample cases, here's an apartment, here's a car, go travel and sell. And quite honestly, it was kind of brutal. It wasn't for me. Being a New England guy traveling the Deep South for 2 years was just not my cup of tea. And nothing against people in the South. They're the most lovely, kind-hearted people around, but it was just a very different environment. And that's when I convinced Dad to take, I think it might have been his last 20 grand he had in his savings account, and open up a cash and carry wholesale business in 1984. Where we were focused on small retailers. Flea markets were very big then in South Florida. People were living in big homes, driving Mercedes-Benz that had flea market booths back in that time. And we were an instant success. And at that point, I was the buyer, the receiver, the person who ticketed the jewelry, displayed it, sold it, shipped it, bookkeeping. And it was very much myself and my mother helping out. And then that has grown into what I have today, with lots of shifts and lots of shakeups in between.
Well, and of course, that's growth, clearly, because you're trying to define yourself and trying to evolve over things as far as that goes. And the other interesting thing is this. I'm curious. I'm always wondering, like you have a jewelry line, for instance, what makes you gravitate to want to work with a female audience instead of a male? Like some people specialize in male-type jewelry, whereas this seems very catered to women. So why the choice to one gender versus the other? Was that on purpose? Was there a reason for it?
Well, there's several. I think maybe the first reason was I like women more than I like men. I have more women friends.
Nicely put.
Yeah. I relate and connect more to women. But on a logical business basis, the women's jewelry industry is, I don't know the statistic, but 100-fold greater than men. You know, men just are not as into jewelry. And you can be successful in the men's line, but it's a very targeted, very, much smaller audience. So I have dabbled in it. I did some stainless steel jewelry for a while. Then I decided while I sold some of it okay, it just wasn't worth maintaining the inventory on the shelf and the extra work for the volume that we were doing. So we just moved our focus to strictly women's product at this time.
Ah, very nice. Okay, yeah, I just wanted to understand that demographic a little bit better. And the other thing cool about the company, although there'll be many things we get into here, is that you offer the opportunity to become a brand ambassador, which I've seen other products do that before. So I'm curious about, do you do that statewide or just in your area, or how does that work exactly?
Well, we're just we just launched in January, so this is a new. This particular venture, this brand DBW Jewelry, is very new, and I will tell you that doing this type of business, a consumer website, is also new and very exciting. I've had to bring in, different staff that has knowledge of this. I've had to hire PR and marketing firm to guide us and lead the way. But basically, what we're looking for are people that have that are out there, that are connected, that are passionate with whatever they're doing, and would want to help us get our jewelry out there. Because if they see it and they experience it, we feel strongly they're going to love it. They're going to see the value and the fun in it, and will want to share it with their people.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. Yeah, because I think that's a definitely interesting aspect and way to go at it, and I love it when people integrate product spokespersons, brand ambassador, because what better way to promote a product than to physically show it, to have people wearing it, showing it, going about town, etc. It's a very, very cool idea, as a matter of fact. I also know that you when exactly, I know you were at the Women's Empower Expo not so long ago, so I wanted to ask how that went.
It went extremely well. So that's an interesting story also. Turns out I was a member of an organization called Vistage for about 2 or 3 years, which is basically a CEO support group where you meet with 18 other CEOs and a business coach, and you get to gain by the experience of the other CEOs, and they've already gone through what you're about to go through, and vice versa. A guest speaker, they always had a guest speaker. It was a once-a-month meeting all day, and this particular guest speaker who came in is Miss Carlin, who is I just lost her first name for a second, but it'll come back to me.
Okay.
But she was a guest speaker at that time for a new social media concept, and she came in to promote it, and I was so unbelievably impressed with her finesse and poise. And I think at the time she was 24, talking in front of a bunch of, basically old CEO guys. That I kind of followed her after that, and then she came up with Alexa Carlin. I'm sorry, that's her name. And coincidentally, I went to high school with her mom, so there became a little bit more of a connection. So when I realized that I wanted to get a little more feedback before we launched, it was an opportunity to take our samples and our display and set up in her show at her expo and just get feedback. And the feedback was very, very encouraging. It was pretty much 100% positive. Wish you had your stuff here. I'd buy some. And of course, we collected contacts, which we're reaching out to now to let them know that it's available to purchase. So it was a very positive experience, and she's expanded from Florida to Washington, D.C., and I believe she might be adding yet another expo for 2019, so we'll probably participate in those.
That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Yeah, because I often wonder about those sorts of things in terms of with your business, how helpful it is for doing expos or other events. So it sounds like it was great. That's awesome. And so you folks know, the DBW in DBW Jewelry stands for Design, Build, Wear. So we're going to be talking about what you call affordable indulgence, and it is extremely affordable, by the way. Number one, that's one of my favorite things. I love jewelry of all kinds. I wear a ton of jewelry, but the fact that it's affordable, I'm telling you, that excites me in and of itself. And the fact that you have so many different types on your line. It's not just specified to one type, one thing, etc., which is another component here that I find fascinating. I love a variety, to be able to look at 3 or 4 different things and not be limited by one or the other. First of all, every purchase includes a gift box as well as a charm tray. And I think that's interesting because I've never seen a company offer that. So tell me a bit about a charm tray and why you need that. I'm all for the charm stuff, but I'm like, how cool is that he's offering that? And do people get a big kick out of that? Because I imagine that's like a little tiny kudo. People are like, this is awesome.
Well, that is just my style. When I want to introduce something, what got me so excited about the business is when I would see everywhere from the wholesale buyers that would come meet me and see my line at a trade show and watch their eyes pop out of their heads when they saw, because our jewelry is special. It's not just your average import jewelry. It's created with a lot of care, a lot of forethought, and I got my production people in China to buy in because, in China, a lot of people talk down about quality coming out of China and so on, but you get what you pay for. And if you get a factory to buy in over there and you're willing to pay for the quality, they're going to make whatever you request of them. Not all factories would do that, but I happen to partner up with one that is as passionate about that as I am. So, like QVC, their quality standards are ridiculous. I mean, over the top for their factories. I am told that I am right up there with them. So, if the stones aren't pronged properly, if the polishing isn't done nicely, if the clasp isn't, positioned right, it goes back on their credit card or their expense. So you can be sure that the quality control is awesome. So when I decided to do gift packaging, I said, what if I were a woman and I was buying a bunch of charms and beads and components, what's it going to be like when I get home? And I want to be able to keep it organized. So, being able to include something that to keep all their pieces in their own little cubbies seemed like a great idea, and we found somebody that did that type of work with plastics and was able to customize it for us, and it's been very popular. The reaction's been terrific. And by the way, if my customers decide to buy so many they don't fit in that first tray, I'll be more than happy to send them a second tray.
Oh, that's so awesome. My goodness. That's very cool. Yeah, because you mentioned the wholesale distribution, cash and carry aspect, which is a little bit different too, obviously, because I haven't met a whole lot of people that do wholesale. So that's an interesting capacity. So talk a bit about that, because you're a wholesale jeweler. How do you vary from the average jeweler, and what sort of clientele is your demographic? Who do you normally deal with? Clientele.
Sure. Well, the wholesale cash and carry was back in the 80s, which evolved into importing. And once I started before I started importing, I found a caster in Rhode Island that was able to make a line that I wanted to do, these little lever back, they called them Eurowire earrings. And I realized that I was buying prime and I could sell to wholesalers. So I shifted my entire business model, I would say in the early to mid 80s, to more of a distribution wholesaler a direct source that sold to wholesalers as opposed to being a wholesaler myself. So that really changed the volume of product and so on. And then as things started to open up with importing, I took a trip to Milan for inspiration. I'm told the best fashion jewelry in the world comes out of Milan back in the day. So I went to the show and I saw basically what they were doing is they were taking inspiration from fine jewelry looks and they were making it in a costume custom jewelry product materials. So I then took trips to Thailand, and then once China opened up, I moved from Thailand to China and found factories, and I began to sell larger customers, some chain stores. At one point I was selling Steinmart. I was Home Shopping Network's very first vendor, my father and I, when they decided to go into the TV network. That's an hour story in itself. But and that took us, the volume was so ramped up so quickly when they went from a regional television network to a national television network that it basically funded our future and changed our lives forever, which enabled us to build our business and have good lives with our families and so on. That was simply amazing. It didn't last all that long, but we had 3 good years, and it was game-changing for us.
Absolutely. So, that's amazing.
Yeah, so our customer, and then our customer base started changing again because China became readily available for just about anybody. So with the invent of the internet and websites that cater to connecting factories to anyone that has red blood, that changed things. So we've now, the distributor model is pretty much gone. Wholesalers, they either have evolved into importers or they have gone by the wayside. And now we're back focusing on retailers. And DBW is our first move to transition into the consumer market because we feel that's a need.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, clearly, because I saw one of the words that, or I should say, the tagline written was "Wear your world on your wrist," which is so lovely. Same thing with the ideology of be yourself, love yourself, create yourself, which is absolutely amazing. So let's backtrack here a second. So if I understand it right, all of the bracelets are not only interchangeable, you've got different types of jewelry as well. So first of all, the fact that they're interchangeable is very cool. Second of all, I love the integration of the charms. By the way, I love the wine charms. As one of us who indulges in our wine, hopefully not too much, but I absolutely love the whole wine charm concept. So
thank you.
Number 1, they're affordable. Number 2, they're interchangeable. Number 3, they're adjustable. Number 4, I love this. Your first line is called Choices. Where did that come from?
Choices actually was my brother. He came up with that. We racked our brains for months and months coming up with the right branding and the right name, and we actually had a different name that we were ready to launch with. And another long story that I'll make short is our attorney that we hired to register the name completed the registration application. And then a year later, as we're literally ready, we already bought packaging and already ready to launch, she contacted us, or actually I contacted her to get an update where she informed us that she had gotten sick, very sick. She's going to be okay, thank God. And that she was not checking her emails for the last several months where the name was not approved. So we had to start all over again. So this whole product line is 2 years in the making from challenges with the mechanics of the bracelets, because I won't do anything that isn't just right. I mean, I truly am connected to the vision of women finding this, getting excited over it when they see it either on the website or in one of our store displays that we are now starting to send out to retailers. To what their experience is going to be like. Because costume jewelry comes at many, many levels. There's costume jewelry that looks great, but you wear it and you're lucky if you get a day or a week or a month out of it. Because it's just not made well. That's not what we do. We make our jewelry to be enjoyed for a long time. We use the best finishes and the best stones, and they're all hand-pronged cubic zirconias versus glued crystals, which tend to get cloudy and fall out. So we do everything the best it can be done. And so that's why when we put this line together, we really were not thinking of a charm or a bead line. We were thinking of just a fun bracelet line that is interchangeable so that you can buy your two pieces of chain, right? And then you can buy a nice cable design bar. You can buy a pave diamond look, which is really cubic zirconias. You swap, so you go to work and you wear your casual bracelet. You come home, you've got a fancy dinner. You swap it out for your diamond look. Or we have things that are in between with a infinity two-tone or a textured designer look. And we have many, many more things coming. It's the beauty of this is that it's never ending, and that's one of the things that attracted me to this concept of coming out with an interchangeable line. There's no end. It's just a matter of how much creativity you can come up with and understanding what our customers out there desire, which is what we're very active in learning. And we're going to be having contests in the future for design, for input, because we want to make sure we have what everybody wants. So, and that's another thing we did. So we have our chains with the interchangeable bars. That's one concept. And then we have our hinged bangle, which will pretty much fit anyone because it's with the hinge it opens up. Now, if you were to look at these, you see at the end there's two components. We call them, for lack of a better term, bangle balls. And we have about 30 different bangle balls, from a polished silver look to a pave look to a rose, colored stones, you name it. And again, there'll be a lot more coming. So you can change the look of the bangle. And the beads and the charms are just more of a add-on. For us, it was almost an afterthought. We were going into the bracelet business, but realized we had an opportunity to include charms. And with the charms, we saw what was out there in the industry with our competitors, and we decided to go in a little different direction, a little more of a refined, fine jewelry look versus that kind of bigger, bolder, bulkier look that some of the other competitors went for. So we're a bit more delicate.
Oh, and of course, and the other thing too is I noticed this, like you mentioned, you've got your bangle bracelet, you've got charm bars, you've got fashion bars, you've got charms. I mean, literally, you could combine 1, 2, 3 different things all on your arm at one time. You can have one simple thing, and it's an expression. I noticed that the various different combinations that you put together are various expressions or shades of oneself. So you literally, on your entire arm, could be an expression of yourself, someone that's loved to you, someone that's beloved to you, that sort of stuff. My significant other actually looked at your line today, and he totally was like, I would buy that without a doubt. And he's a guy. You know what I mean? So I'm like, the appeal and accessibility is amazing, and your reach with this is huge. In addition to which, I noticed one of the things I thought about was children. I don't know if you had ever thought about this, but I'm like, I wonder if you were going to expand out into the children's market, because this looks so ideal. I mean, little kids like those little things. You've got the charms. Have you given consideration to expanding your audience out, I guess is the big question.
Absolutely, that's been considered, and I would say it's a good chance that that'll happen. Right now, we're focused on this line with a lot of expansion. As an example, you mentioned Women Empower. We're very much behind that, very much support it, and I have put into work 6 different beads and charms that are Women Empower themed, one of which is going to be absolutely fantastic. It's a lady's fist breaking through a ceiling, one that's a lady boss, all the things that are popular as far as the sayings. So we're going to put those into our jewelry. Even a charm bar that will say empowered women empower women. And then they're going to put their women empowerment charms and whatever other charms they're attracted to. So that's coming, and because of my passion for the yoga community, the conscious community, I am developing chakra beads and natural crystal charms and things like you would see on a woman's pendant, somebody who does a lot of meditation. So we're going to be expanding in certain niches that we're passionate about, and as we learn about others, we'll do the work there as well.
Actually, yes. As a matter of fact, I had suggested something. I was just talking to Emily the other day, and I said one of the things that I envisioned was literally art on your arm, so to speak. Almost everyone that I work with is a filmmaker, an actor, a producer, a writer, someone with a creative talent. And I said, what if you took, like, let's say you had a musician, and you had like a little musical note on there, and then you had, various instruments, etc., kind of developing your passion for art and putting it on your arm. That was one of the things I had thought about. I thought, oh, how cool is this? The thing is that the options are endless. They're simplistic, and not to mention the fact, let's talk a bit about this. I'm assuming very durable, very flexible. How about the product quality itself? I'm assuming that they're pretty durable, or are these just things that you wear as a specialty item and we want to be careful about them? Because I want to be clear on that.
Well, it's good. That's a very, very good question. So there are again, as we touched on earlier, there are levels of custom jewelry. There's the level of custom jewelry that you might get at a Claire's, which is very fun. It's very inexpensive, but you don't expect it to last. It's something you wear a few times. You have some fun with it. It costs you a couple bucks, and you move on. And then there's everything in between. Then on the far opposite side of the Claire spectrum, and everything in between, is everything that I produce. Now, custom jewelry can be made of many different products. I'm sure your listeners have heard about challenges coming out of California about lead in jewelry and cadmium, poisonous components in jewelry. None of that is in my jewelry because we use jeweler's bronze, otherwise known as brass, as our casting material. And it's made the exact same way your jeweler would make your 14, 18 karat gold or platinum jewelry. It's a lost wax casting. It's then polished. The only difference is with brass, we have to put a coating or an electroplate over it, and we use genuine rhodium, which is the hardest plating finish that you can put. It's better than platinum. It's better than silver. Well, anything's better than silver. And you can imagine your flatware, how quickly that tarnished when you touched it. You don't want that on your jewelry. Yep. So we use genuine rhodium, and we use a very heavy 18 karat gold electroplate. Now, anything that's a coating, over time, it's not going to last forever, but taken care of properly, and you're not jumping in the ocean with it, and you're not spraying your perfume on it, this is going to last. This is going to last a very long time. We give a 1-year unconditional replacement guarantee with no cost to the consumer. So anything that happens to that item in the first year, you just send it back to us, and we replace it with a smile on our face. Because we feel that confident, and we want everybody out there to feel confident that it's really a no-risk situation, because anything, and things can happen. You never know. And if it does, we got your back, and we'll replace it.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Now, when somebody comes to you and they want to order it, and obviously I'm assuming you can order online as well as in person, or do you like to keep it limited to the online, or do you have a shop there? Or like if someone's listening right now and they're like, I want to get that like tomorrow, what's the best and easiest way to do that? Because I imagine you're quite busy 24/7.
Well, this is going to be the fun part of the conversation. So one of the things so the answer to your question is go onto our website, take a look at the product, and you're ready, click the first link at the top of the page called Bracelet Builder. We spent a fortune on this technology. I have someone that I know that is a code writing genius, and this was not easy to do because our bracelets are round. And we created what's called a Bracelet Builder. You go in and you search for which bangle or which bracelet you want and which bar you want, and it builds it in front of your eyes. And you click which charms and beads, and then you can click on them and move them into different positions, and you'll be able to see exactly what your bracelet will look like when it arrives.
Wow.
And once you've built what you love, you click Add to Cart, and it populates the cart with the 3, 4, 5, 6 components that you've chosen. And to do this on a round bracelet, you have to use your imagination, but for the charms to change position as they're moving around the bracelet, that took some serious talent. And we feel, as does the person who created this, and looking around at the competition, that we have the best bracelet builder in the industry. And it's a lot of fun to play with.
Oh, my God, that's so cool. Goodness. Now, I want to read this off to you here because it looks like, oh, my gosh, you've been on air almost an hour. Can you believe this? I almost feel like you want to come back again. I want to have you back again. This is so cool.
Okay.
We didn't have enough time to talk about all this. 45 minutes was not quite long enough. I want you to come back. I do, and we'll talk about that. I want to cover this real quickly. www.dbwjewelry.com is the website. I know you have a presence on Facebook, obviously. It's, of course, DBW Jewelry, as well as your Instagram. You're also on Pinterest. Are there any other places on social media that people can find you, or otherwise in general?
For now, I believe we have some YouTube coming up. We're working on the videos now. We have lots of new images coming out every day on our graphics department, and plus people out there buying the bracelets and sending in pictures. We'll be posting those. And real quick, for your friends and listeners, we've created a discount code of SINS 10s, and for that, your customers will get a free bead or charm with any bracelet purchase. So that's SINS.
Oh my God, how cool is that? Oh, I will.
Well, we wanted to
thank
you for this. Thank you for this opportunity, and thought it'd be nice to thank your listeners as well.
Oh, my gosh, Larry, you are too wonderful. And I will post that information up this evening, actually. As a matter of fact, I'm in New York. I'm actually on business myself, so I'm literally running to a meeting when this interview gets over with. Just so you know, about 2 hours after it gets done, it gets archived, and I'll send you a copy of it. And make sure that you touch base today with your PR person, because I have surprises for you that we didn't get into on the show that she can relay to you. And we'll have you come back. We'll have you come back again sometime next month, and we can talk about some more things. But I can't thank you enough just for taking the time today that you had to give to me. I truly, truly appreciate it.
And I feel the same way. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Larry. I'll talk to you soon. Have a great weekend.
Take care. Bye. You too. Bye-bye.
All right, folks, you've got it. That would be my wrap up there. Real quickly again, one more time, www.dbwjewelry.com. And Facebook and Instagram, it's also DBW Jewelry, as well as Pinterest. I'm officially off the air, running to the city. I will be back on air next Tuesday. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.
Blog Talk Radio.